So if you want to increase your area of expertise, if you want to increase your perception around what you talk about, one of the best ways to do it is to do a solo episode. Take the audio, put it on the podcast platforms, take the video, throw it up on YouTube. Podcast people, welcome back to another episode of Podcast Growth University. I hope you enjoyed the latest episode, episode number 6, How to Become a Better Interviewer. Again, there are many things that can come from you being a good interviewer, whether it's networking opportunities or monetization opportunities or just the ability to hold a conversation with somebody outside of the podcast. That's also another benefit. Today, for episode number 7, should you be recording video too? So there is a chance that you are watching this on YouTube and you're not just listening. If you are just listening, I also do record these in 4K and put them up on YouTube as well. Video may be more important than you realize, but for a reason you might not be thinking. I remember very early in the podcast journey, Alan, you'll hear his name often if you're a new listener. Alan is my business partner. He is the co-founder and the co-host. I guess the host, we're both hosts and founders. But early in the journey, I was following Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan was the person I looked up to in podcasting because at the time, and still to this day, he really is one of, if not the biggest podcasters in the world. And he had these really cool clips on his social media that were anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes of podcast episodes. And what it was the most valuable part or the most eye-catching, ear-catching part with really cool cutscenes, and sometimes there was music and there were subtitles. And I remember having this conversation with Alan. I said, I have to figure out a way to make those because I believe that will help the podcast. And I went and I downloaded Adobe Premiere. If you know what Adobe Premiere is, awesome. If not, it is a video editing software that some Hollywood directors use. It's a pretty high-end product and it works really, really well, but there is a learning curve for sure. And I sat down and my goal was to make a 1-minute teaser clip out of one of our episodes. And it took me 16 hours. My laptop crashed twice. I had to buy a new laptop before I could actually accomplish this. And it was a challenge, but to this day, it was one of the best things that we have ever done. So when I say, should you be recording video too, there's a couple places I want to go with this episode. Number one, I think recording video, especially now with Zoom, with StreamYard, which I'm using, there is Riverside, there's Zencaster, there's Skype, there's so many platforms you can use where it's really, really easy for you to record video. I think you should record video even if you're not going to use it right away. Why not have it to potentially use it later? Okay? That's my first point. If you're going to do a podcast, it is not that much more work to do video. And you don't have to have a studio set up necessarily, especially in the beginning. You don't have to have an awesome backdrop. You never know. You might end up using that content later. But this is my thought process. Okay. If you're going to focus on growing your podcast, one of the main ways to grow a podcast is through social media. I have a website up right now. It's called earthweb.com/podcast statistics, and there's a bunch of other stuff after that. But one of the stats they have on here, social media represents around 64% of how people find out about podcasts. I think this is one of the main reasons many people struggle with growing their podcasts is because they're not doing very good social media promotion. They're using an audiogram, which is just a still frame picture with some audio behind it that might move. It might have some audio waves that move, so it's kind of like a video. Or they're just sharing a still picture, like of the guest or of themselves, and it just has some verbiage on it. It's not eye-catching. It doesn't make you want to listen to the episode. But imagine if you had a video teaser clip, anywhere from 30 seconds if you want to use a reel, or 15 seconds if you want to put it on TikTok, up to a couple minutes depending on where you're going to put it. But it's something that is going to capture the audience's attention and it will draw them into listening to more of the episode. This is the analogy I always use. One of my favorite movies ever of all time is Titanic. Titanic is a very well shot video, a movie production, right? Imagine if you were just watching Titanic And it was a picture of the Titanic, and it was an audiogram where you could hear the words, but you couldn't see the actors acting. The movie wouldn't be the same. I think this is where a lot of people are going wrong. They're saying, well, you know what? I don't really care about YouTube. I don't expect to get much crossover on YouTube. I'm not going to do video content. Any views you get on YouTube are actually just an added benefit. And this is what I mean by that. We do very little promotion on our YouTube in terms of, and when I say promotion, this is what I mean. Anytime somebody asks me about the podcast, I send them, we have a link that has all of our audio platforms. So it has Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Audible, all of that stuff. I never send the YouTube link. I always send an audio link. So we're not promoting the video side of things when people ask us for a link. What we're doing is we're recording the audio, we're recording the video, we're throwing the video up on YouTube, and then we're breaking that up into micro content. But we have an episode with a guest. Her name is Bronnie Ware. Bronnie Ware is an Australian author, and she wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it's a multi-time best-selling book, and it's very well known in our industry, in the self-improvement industry. We had her on the podcast 3 years ago or something like that. And at the time, we were recording the video. And it wasn't over Zoom. It wasn't over StreamYard. It was just Alan and I sitting in our studio listening to this person talking over a cell phone. That's how we were doing it back then. But we put it up on YouTube and said, well, we might as well do it and see what happens. Here's the interesting thing that happened. That YouTube episode, that video has like 7,000 plays. 7,000 views on YouTube that we never would have gotten if we didn't put it on YouTube. Because this is what happens. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world behind Google. And somebody went on there, many people went on there, and they searched the top 5 regrets of the dying. When you search the top 5 regrets of the dying audiobook, our podcast would be recommended. So we got a ton of organic growth and organic views from that one video being on there. If we didn't put that on there, we would have 7,000 less views and who knows how many less listeners. That's one reason I like to just put the video up there. It doesn't have to be perfect. I like to think of it as it's extra worker bees out there doing work without you having to worry about it. Okay, so that's my first point. Should you be recording video too? My answer across the board is yes. Even if you're not going to use it immediately, it's good to have. If you can get to the point where you can either learn how to video edit and audio edit yourself and then post it, awesome. Again, you can always reach out to us. We are way more affordable than you think. We can do all the audio editing and video editing at Next Level Podcast Solutions. Everything will be in the show notes. But if you can just hang on to the content and figure it out later, cool. It's always important to have. Okay, a couple more points on the importance of video and why I think you should be recording audio and video as well. Imagine this. Imagine you go on a podcast as a guest, and after your interview, a couple weeks later, a couple days later, whenever the episode drops, you get tagged on social media, and it's a high-quality video of the interviewer and you having a conversation, and it makes you look really good. It makes your brand look a lot better. It's very, very high quality. It builds perception. It's you speaking. You're more likely to share it than if it was just a picture. And I do this all the time where I'm on other shows, and the things that I'm really excited to share are the things that are video, because I know it doesn't necessarily help me to share a picture of myself on my social media. I do that all the time. Nobody's going to click on that to listen to the episode. But if the video is something about me, let's just say it's me saying, well, the importance of vulnerability is blank, 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 blank. The person seeing that wants to learn more about vulnerability. They might actually follow the link and go view and listen to or view the whole episode. You have to understand that it's not even really about YouTube. The best way to promote your podcast is on social media. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, the best way to promote your podcast on social media is through video. So yeah, it makes sense to record the video, and it makes sense to figure out a way to get it up on your social media because it's going to engage people at a way higher level. The conversion rate from somebody watching it to actually tuning into your podcast, I don't know the exact numbers because I don't know if people have done studies on that, but I would venture to guess it is very, very, very high compared to a picture or just a post with words on it.
I just wanted to take a quick second and give a shout out and a huge thank you to Next Level Podcasting Solutions, Kevin and his team. They have been incredible to work with, very flexible, on the spot with any questions that I have or any concerns that I have. When I first started out my podcast, I was doing everything on my own. I have no editing background. I have no podcasting background. I knew nothing about it. And so I was bootstrapping all of this myself while I was still trying to take on my role as a full-time mom. And once I met up with Kevin and we had these discussions and I got on board with adding an editing team, oh my goodness, it just lifted this weight off of me. It lifted my time that I was spending doing my editing. And in the beginning, full transparency, when I was editing just my individual recordings, it was a little more manageable, not super manageable. And then when I started doing my interviews for the podcast, it was hours upon hours of me doing the editing that didn't include any of the promotional material that I am now getting from Kevin and his team. It wouldn't have been sustainable. I would not have been able to keep up with that. So I recommend Kevin and his team. They have done wonderful work in helping me grow my podcast. I have really enjoyed working with the editing team, and it definitely feels like more of a team environment versus me hiring them to do a specific job. I mean, we all work collaboratively on the projects that I have, and I have these crazy ideas sometimes, and they come up with a solution to fit my needs. I can't recommend them enough. I've really enjoyed working with them. Kevin and the Next Level Podcasting Solutions, thank you so much for the work that you have done in the past and are continuing to do for me. I'm growing this community and growing this platform with a beautiful team that is working for me and with me to see my vision and help that come to life. So thank you again so much. I really appreciate you guys.
You're capturing people emotionally, and it's also more valuable. You're adding more value to them. Last point I want to make when it comes to video content. I was actually on a call with somebody earlier, and this person said, well, I want to do more speaking. I want to get paid to do keynote speeches. That's something I want to do. And I said, awesome. I said, when you do your solo episodes, I want you to start recording video. And here's why. Your social media platforms, as well as your podcast, are quickly becoming your resume. So if I go to your social media, I'll just say Instagram, because that's the one I like best. If I go to your Instagram and there are no videos of you speaking, how do I even know you're a speaker? And she said, well, that's a really good point. If you're going to do an episode, you can use that as an opportunity to kind of reverse engineer your content. So if you're a business coach and you do an episode on the 3 ways to grow your business, you could very easily create a piece of micro content that says the number 1 way to grow your business. And it's just you talking about one of those points. And it's 1 minute long. And then you share it on your social media. And that becomes part of your resume. Then people understand, oh, this person actually is a business coach. We are in a very interesting time where we really want to test drive coaches before we work with them. We want to test drive services. We want to test drive products. And we want to make sure that the people know what they're talking about. So when you go to somebody's social media, you're doing this without, maybe you don't even logically know it. You don't consciously know it. You're looking at what they talk about and you're connecting, oh, this person is an expert at this. So if you want to increase your area of expertise, if you want to increase your perception around what you talk about, one of the best ways to do it is to do a solo episode. Take the audio, put it on the podcast platforms, take the video, throw it up on YouTube, and then break it into micro content of you talking about this area of expertise. Then when people go to your social media, they see exactly what you're about. And it's kind of you giving them free value, but it's a high quality free value. It's a video. I really think that the world is going more video. I mean, obviously TikTok is huge right now, and Instagram Reels were very big for a while, but I think that now that people aren't traveling as much, a lot of people are working from home. I think you're going to start seeing people consume video at a deeper level. And one of the reasons is because video is easier than it's ever been. I mean, there's a lot of platforms and apps out there that can make it easier for you to do this. But when people ask me the question, should I be recording video too? That is always my answer, yes. And there's a bunch of reasons why. One, it's going to help your area of expertise. You're going to look more professional. You just are, because if there aren't a lot of people doing video and you are, you're going to look more professional and your perception will be higher. Number two, you're going to get organic reach that you wouldn't get elsewhere if you're going to throw it up on YouTube. You never know. There's several of our episodes that have thousands of views that we didn't expect, or close to 1,000 views. And that's just on YouTube. That's not even counting the podcast platforms. So you're getting an extra bang for your buck for hopefully a very little amount of your time, depending on how you're doing it. Your guests are more likely to share it, for sure. And honestly, your listeners are probably more likely to share it too, because everybody wants to know they're listening to something valuable. So imagine if you have really, really high quality content, your community is going to be proud to share that because it's going to make them look good too. Oh, wow, this person listens to this show. Wow, this show is really put together well. It's high quality. I should listen to this show as well. Again, your guests are more likely to share. And I think the understanding that YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world, I mean, when you really think about that, if you have an episode on any how-to episode, right? How to become more confident, how to become a better speaker, how to change a flat tire, whatever it is, that might get searched on YouTube, and you might get organic growth or organic reach or organic views from YouTube. Where the podcast platforms are still very much the Wild West, it's hard to search podcast platforms, right? It's not as put together as YouTube. We're still pretty early in, all things considered, but you're going to get extra reach and extra views that you probably wouldn't have if you didn't put it on YouTube. One of the things that, and I wasn't planning on talking on this, I want to make this somewhat of a short episode, but oftentimes people say, well, I don't have a good camera, I don't have a good backdrop, my lighting isn't good, whatever it may be. I always say this in the beginning, just record them. You don't have to put them up, but if you record them, you won't regret not having them. That's what I always say. I've had clients where they say, yeah, I have all the video. Can we go back and just create a YouTube channel and throw up 100 episodes? Absolutely, for sure. And as long as you continue on, it's good to see that progression. If you look at our first episodes at Next Level You, they don't look nearly as good as they do today. That's okay. That's par for the course. That's how it works. That means we've evolved and we've elevated and we've grown, and you can do the same. So you don't have to have an expensive camera. You don't have to have perfect lighting. You don't have to have a perfect backdrop. In the beginning, just work on getting comfortable, or work with getting comfortable on camera. It's a little bit different when you record on camera instead of just into the microphone, because you're not going to want to be reading as much. You're going to want to look at the camera, obviously. You're going to have to be somewhat presentable if that's part of your brand. But I do believe the long tail importance of having video will always be there, and you can always not use it. All right? You can record a bunch of episodes on video and say, you know what, I'm not going to release this, but you can't go back and redo it. It's very hard to redo. So I would rather prep it, have the video, and not use it than say, you know what, I really wish I did that video. I do think we're going video more than anything. I mean, Spotify even tested out on the actual Spotify app, they had video similar to YouTube. So they're testing this out. I don't know if it's going to land. I don't know how well it's going to work, but I do believe it's going to continue moving this way. And if you look at your favorite podcast, I'm willing to bet they probably have pretty good teaser clips, even if they don't use YouTube. They're taking their content in video form and they're saying, we're going to use this to promote our podcast. So I think it would benefit you. And I know it can be more of a challenge. I know getting on camera can be challenging, but I think in the long run, it will be worth it. Podcast Growth University, as you know, I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I created a company within Next Level University, our other podcast, called Next Level Podcast Solutions. And Next Level Podcast Solutions is where you can go for any of your podcasting needs. So we have clients where we do all of their audio editing, all of their video editing. We create their micro content. We post all of their episodes. All they do is show up to the microphone and we do everything else. So let's put it this way, right? I am a client. The Podcast Growth University is a client of Next Level Podcast Solutions. I will record this episode. I will drop it into our Google Drive folder, and our amazing team will do all of the rest of the stuff. They'll do the audio editing, they'll do the video editing, and they are amazing, and the communication is awesome, and we have been working together for a long time, and they are some of my favorite people in the world. So if you want easier times with podcasting, please reach out. You can reach out to me at NeverQuitKid on Instagram. My email address, is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. You can also email me there, but it's much cheaper than you think. It's not a ton of money. And if that is too much for you, we can always find a way to make it even more affordable for you. I think that the understanding that I have is that so many people have a message. They have this story. They want to bring content to the world, but they don't know how. And that was us in the beginning. I had to learn how to audio edit. I had to learn how to video edit. I learned how to do all that stuff, but it was taking me away from the podcast. It's really hard to do 7 episodes a week and everything else. And in the beginning, it's really hard to do 1 episode a week and everything else. So if you feel like being in front of the microphone is your favorite part, and you're struggling with the audio editing, the video editing, whatever it is, please reach out. We would absolutely love to help you. We just want to help podcasters. That's the ultimate goal with this show. And honestly, that's why I try to do the episodes the way I do. I try to just get right into it and say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about, and here are the things that I brought. Hopefully it is valuable. Podcast Growth U. Next week, we are going to talk about why you should treat your podcast like a business. This is one of my favorite things in the world to talk about when I'm talking to my clients. And it's something that I say to my clients very often. Well, if you were treating it like a business, would you do it that way? Yes or no? And we can make changes based on that. So that's one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think at the end of the day, if you're growing a podcast, what you're really growing is a business. And if you're only treating your podcast like a passion project, if you're treating it like it's something that isn't super serious, you're probably not going to get super serious results. And I can tell you the behind the scenes of our business is pretty serious, and we take it very seriously, and that's why we've gotten the results that we have. So that will be our next episode. Episode number 8 will be why you should treat your podcast like a business. Thank you all for tuning in, as always, whether you are listening or watching on YouTube. Happy podcasting, my friends. I will talk to you next week.